What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today, for Top 5 Tuesday, we're going to be talking about the most skill-based characters in Epic 7. Now, these are characters that aren't particularly hard to gear, but require a lot of game knowledge and drafting skills to be able to use properly and get really good rewards out of knowing how to use them, making them overall pretty hard to use in that aspect. So, if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. Link down in the description. You may have seen that I've been streaming a little bit of Pokemon Unite. I am still loving Epic 7. I'm still going to be releasing a lot of content for Epic 7, but I might also be trying a little bit of Pokemon Unite videos here and there. This shouldn't really disrupt the normal Epic 7 schedule, but if you do like the game, you should consider checking it out. It will come out on the mobile in September, and then you'll be able to have more experience if you watch. But with that aside, let's actually get to what you came here for, the video. So first, top 5, right? So the criteria for this is units that require good knowledge of drafting. Now, there are heroes that don't actually require a lot of drafting skills, right? Like Bassar, for the most part, you can pick him into a lot of situations and it's going to work out. You can think of Arby, same thing. He's a pretty generally easy unit to use that a lot of people use because of how strong and easy he is to use. To that extent, you can think of other units like Landy, and a lot of the meta units are typically pretty easy to do and have consistent results. Now, the ones we're going to be talking about are units that actually require a bit more thinking. So first, let's talk about the honorable mentions. You guys get an idea of what type of characters we're going for before we actually go onto the list. And if you disagree with the list, let me know in the comments. Who do you think is actually hard to use, right? Who's a hard skill character? So the first one on the honorable mention list is going to be none other than Specimen Says. Now, the reason why he's not actually on the list, he's a very hard unit to use because you have to decide on the build, which build you think is best for him. You have to decide on a team that has stuns and doesn't restrict you to just using stuns, and if you're able to get him to the draft, you're guaranteed an extinction unit that can potentially just solo the whole enemy team, right? So he's a very hard unit to use and does have a high skill gap to actually make him work. The problem is that he has a massive skill gap for medium reward. Even if you're the best Specimen Obsessed player, you're not going to be getting dummy wins, right? It's still going to be hard for you. You are restricted in what drafts you can create because you need stuns. You inherently have counters, and usually if your spec gets banned, your draft falls apart, right? So that's usually the problem with Specimen Says, but he's the same idea where he's actually really hard to use, right? He's really hard to draft properly and decide on what build you want to use him. Another unit kind of going similar to this is going to be none other than Designer Lilibet. She's actually a really good unit, right? But a lot of people don't like to use her that much for anti-control. They rather use something more reliable like Champion Serato because you actually have to tune how you're getting debuffed properly with Designer Lilibet. She actually does require some skill on when to use the S3, when to hold off, when to attack who, right? There's a lot of skill attached to it, as well as deciding when to properly draft her. Because if you just draft her very early against a controlled draft, they're not going to have enough debuffs. But if you draft her too late, then it may not be enough and she'll just get banned, right? So she's definitely a hard unit to pick properly to do her job. So it does have a decently high ceiling. So these are the units that I want you guys to think about, right? Are units that are not really easy to use and draft, but not because they're bad, just because it's just their high skill ceiling, right? Like both those units that I mentioned have potential. The only reason they're honorable mentions is because they're not as strong. But now let's start with the number 5, Crimson Armin. Now you may be wondering, King Blair, isn't she super basic? Isn't her kit very easy to understand and use? While yes, the hard part comes from actually drafting properly and deciding the speed tuning of your units so that you can actually pick her in a lot of situations. What do I mean by that? Well, the first decision you have to make, so let's just talk about what she does. As a base, what she does is she gives you an Adamant Shield passive, essentially, that is a little bit better because it protects against everything, not just crits, has a provoke, and then the S3 is the reason that actually makes her a high skill champion. So S3, that gives invincibility and immunity. The reason why this is so hard to use in a lot of situations is because you have to decide first, do I want to go first or do I want to go second, right? Where does she go first for a slow team or does she go second for a fast team to where the opponent can retaliate? That's the first option you have to decide before you even actually use her. Then when you actually draft her, she is literally just a tank, right? She doesn't really do much outside of tanking and being a support. So you need to think, what DPSs can I put to capitalize on Crimson Armin? But then you also have to think about, what if they ban her? Do I have the damage or do I have the backup and support to be able to support my aggressive team, right? So there's a lot of things you actually have to think about when you're actually using Crimson Armin. And there are a lot of people that don't draft her properly because they'll pick Crimson Armin, Landy, and all these units that lose to Bazaar, and then they'll pick Bazaar and Briar Witch, and then you automatically lose the game, right? So knowing how to draft her, knowing what units to draft her with, that's where the skill comes in, as well as knowing how to properly build her to tune her properly to the actual match. This is one of the reasons why you don't see her that often lower down, but higher up, she's actually a very annoying unit because in the right hands, she is ridiculously powerful and can just win you games like crazy because the damage mitigation and the denying a full turn is just crazy good, as well as just being able to provoke as a whole. So Crimson Armin is going to be that number 5. The reason she's here is because overall her kit is pretty basic, right? It's just tank and do S3, right? So at number 4, we have a similar style unit, which is going to be none other than DJ Bazaar. So DJ Bazaar is a unit that to this day people think is a bad unit, right? People still think he doesn't do enough. People think that he doesn't really do anything. Well, the thing about it is a lot of people that know how to use him draft him all the freaking time. Why, right? Right now, in the meta, there are a lot of stray debuffs, right? Think of things like Maid Chloe that stuns, General Purgus that stuns and provokes, Fallen Cecilia who provokes, things like Arby that blind, right? There's a lot of Craw that provokes, or the S2 that pushes back, right? There are a lot of these debuff heavy characters in the meta, whether they're direct or indirect, and having a DJ Bazaar in your draft helps you nullify a lot of control units. The part where the skill comes in is because this S3 is really good at cleansing and giving immunity. The thing about it is when you pick DJ Bazaar, you are giving up your support slot to having that initial S3 to be able to cleanse the debuffs. And that's why a lot of people don't really know how to capitalize on how good this S3 is. They usually just see this as a cleanse, but they ignore the fact that it gives a 30% CR push and they don't use that to their advantage, right? That's why you see a lot of Warhorns. You see a lot of Water's Origin, right? Knowing what artifact to pick, what build if you want to do counter or speed, right? Speed tuning that to set up a team with DJ Bazaar where you're able to deny the debuffs, give your team turn priority, and then win off of that, right? He's a character, and characters like this, a lot of people struggle with, is characters that have to win off the S3. People are very used to characters that are good the whole fight. Stannon, good the whole fight. Landy, good the whole fight, right? Craw, good the whole fight. But DJ Bazaar is a unit that you have that initial burst, and you have to win off of that initial advantage. And knowing how to draft around that and knowing how to utilize DJ Bazaar's CR push as well as his slow, consistent healing is where the skill of this character comes in. And it's one of the reasons why people don't fully appreciate how good a 30% full cleanse, full immunity really is. And you'll occasionally see things like Kayron pair with DJ Bazaar because you can also protect some of the weaknesses of some of the characters that can get provoked down. Or you see things like Violet and DJB because then they can't lock down your Violet and you get nice little sustain for your Violet to make sure that he can stay alive and do his job, right? These are the things that learning how to draft this character and actually knowing how to use them are going to be amazing. One thing I realized is a lot of the heroes that are hard to use are actually going to be MO heroes. I just realized that because now we're about to go into the number 3, and we have none other than a unit that was complained about a lot for the weird reasons. Archdemon's Shadow. This unit I still think is so toxic. If you ask top level players their opinion on Archdemon's Shadow, they will tell you they think she's a toxic unit and that she is good, right? That she can be strong in the right team composition. What makes Archdemon's Mercedes so hard for people to understand how to draft and how to use? First, she does require hard gear requirements, which is not part of this video, but it's something that a lot of people get pushed out is because of the gear requirements. Because people tend to go for offensive stats, like crit rate, crit damage, where she's not supposed to have that, or even like a lot of effectiveness. She doesn't need a lot of effectiveness. She needs a lot of attack and bulk, right? Which a lot of people don't actually go for that build, right? But the way that people are always saying, it's like, oh, her seal's not 100%, she's not good, right? She's not good enough for me. Well, that's the part that makes her really good, is that inconsistency and being so annoying against the opponent, because given a counter set and given a team like Ross, like Cerise, right, to pair off with her, like Doris and Royale that allow her to scale up onto the late game, allows her to really truly shine as a unit. Because of the counter set and because of her innate tankiness, right? She has a 30% damage reduction, right? That is a very hard unit to kill. If they hit her, she has a chance to counterattack with the skill with Lela Violin and proc this S2 that can strip and apply glancing hit, right? And she does decent damage once she gets to 5 stacks. Because you typically build her with high attack, the burn damage is usually enough to kill a lot of units in this game. And she still has the seal passive that the opponent has to respect if they have something like an Arby, if they have something like a Rylet, right? Or a General Purgus, or a Seaside. They have to respect this S1, because even if it's not 100%, there's a chance they'll counterattack, it'll trigger, strip your immunity, and then she'll be able to soul burn it and land it on you, right? She still does lose to 15%, which sucks, but this unit in the right hands is so toxic and so powerful that it's crazy to me that more people don't actually use her, right? Because I know a lot of people did pull for her. She's because she looks great, right? And she's one of the episode 1 villains. So I know a lot of people actually have her and don't use her because her playstyle is so unique and requires Soul Weaver and tanks, and is wanting to take the opponent in frenzy and win off of the burn with this S3, right? So that's why she's kind of hard to use, kind of hard to draft and understand. But when you learn how to do it, man, she can be so oppressive. She usually almost is always a forced ban in a majority of situations, right? When you draft her, which is what you want to do. So now we go to the number 2 with none other than Blaze Dingo. Now, Blaze Dingo is a unit that I'm shocked that more people don't use, because every time I see a Blaze Dingo, I know I am about to get clapped, right? So what does Blaze Dingo do? You may be thinking like, what does he do, honestly? Right, so first, the S1, it's a heal that does damage. Pretty nice. The S2, AoE attack, that heals, and if you crit, you attack another enemy, and then you heal again, right? So you get basically 2 heals, and this heals for a lot because it's based on the damage that you deal, right? So that's pretty good, right? If you do more damage, you heal more, and then you are able to do your S1 where you do damage and you heal, right? And then you have this S3, which is honestly kind of slept on. It's pretty crazy how good the skill is. It essentially heals, again, a lot of healing, gives invincibility and attack buff. And what's really nice about this is if you soul burn this, he gets to get an extra turn of invincibility and attack buff, and he can get greater attack buff with his exclusive equipment. So now you have a character that is doing pretty good damage, that can heal, that can negate damage turn 1 with invincibility. That's amazing. That is a very good character. And he's a Soul Weaver, which is so quirky because he's a damage dealing Soul Weaver, which is one of the reasons that I feel people are off put by him. But when people actually know how to use this guy with things like Seaside Bellona, right? Or Tank Landy, or things like, or Charlotte, right? These units that are typically on the slower side, that take some time to ramp up, especially Seaside Blingo is just actually disgusting. But these units that you want to protect, you can give them invincibility so the opponent can kill them off the bat, heal them, and then Blingo himself will be doing damage, right? So most people usually build him kind of like a bruiser, right? They'll build him with pretty good attack and pretty good HP, since even though he has atrocious stats, right? His stats are ridiculously bad. They'll build him like a bruiser where he's like almost 3k attack, like 1.3, 1.5k HP, and like 1.2, 1.3k defense, where he can take a couple of hits, he can support your ally, and he can also do big damage with this, right? Because you're able to apply invincibility, AoE attack, do damage, and if you soul burn it, you get to keep it, your invincibility for another turn, guaranteeing you another S1, right? Very annoying unit, and used properly is just ridiculous, right? It's just crazy how good this unit can be. And now at the number 1, we have none other than a very new unit, actually, but Infernal Kawasu. Most people can agree that this is one of the best designed characters that we have gotten for 2021. Now, I'm saying this before the collab, which would probably blow our minds, but this unit is so well made and has such a high skill ceiling on both how you build them, how you draft them, how you play him. Right? He has such a good such a high ceiling that it's crazy to me that I don't see him more. Why? Well, the S1 at first doesn't look crazy, right? It's just a S1 that applies burn, but when you have Vigor, you're able to also get an extra burn chance, right? Which is pretty nice. Double burning, right? That's really good. How do you get Vigor? By getting AoE. You dispel buffs, you go up, and you get Vigor, where you get extra stats and CR push, right? And then you're able to S3, single target a strip that ignores FRES that also applies 2 burns, right? So if you learn how to draft this guy properly and you build him to be able to cut more aggressive teams, more Landy reliant teams, and Landy goes in, you're able to come in and one-shot their Soul Weaver, right? So if you learn how to draft him around AoE drafts and protect him, he can be an AoE nightmare, because if they AoE, you essentially can almost take out a unit off the bat, right? Because you just S3, apply that little burn, pop the burn, and probably kill. And this skill is up every 3 turns, right? So if you learn how to use him, if you learn how to properly draft him, you can go a very long way. Even into things like carry, right, that are AoE, you can take him in there, he'll get the CR push, and you'll be able to capitalize on it. If you learn how to capitalize on this guy, the amount of things you can do is ridiculous. He's such a high ceiling character, has so much potential, and is so well designed where he doesn't feel overbearing, but has his strengths, right? So he's going to be one of the highest skill characters in this game, and that is why he is there. So that is all I have for you guys today. I hope y'all enjoyed this video and you guys got some fun out of it. But that's all I got for you guys, and I will see you next time. Peace.